The last hope. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so silent. 12 species, representing the last free civilizations in the known universe, watched as the holographic display showed another world turning black. Not the darkness of death, but something worse. The crystalline beings they called the Obsidian Collective were converting all matter, organic and inorganic, into their own crystalline pattern. Admiral Cathex of the Meridian Fleet, his translucent appendages dimming with exhaustion, gestured at the display. The collective has consumed 37 systems in the past solar cycle. Our weapons pass through their structures without effect. Our shields mean nothing to their conversion fields. At this rate, we have perhaps 2 cycles before they reach our core worlds. Around the chamber, representatives of species that had warred for millennia now sat together in shared dread. The arthropodal Zixthi, the energy-based luminary, the silicon-based Petrova, all had tried their species' unique approaches. All had failed. Then first speaker Nixus of the luminary pulsed with sudden intensity. There is one option we haven't considered. The chamber's lighting shifted as all attention focused on her glowing form. Our deep space monitors recently detected a civilization in the spiral arm we long dismissed as empty. They're primitive by our standards, only beginning to explore their solar system, but they possess something unique. The chamber erupted in dismissive gestures and sounds. Primitives, against the collective. Supreme Commander Vexthor of the Zixthi clicked his mandibles in derision. What could they possibly offer? Nix's glow intensified. They call themselves humans, and they possess something we've never seen in our combined history, an ability to adapt and evolve their thinking at a rate that defies all known learning curves. While their technology is crude, their minds. She paused. Their minds work in ways that even our most advanced prediction matrices cannot model. The holographic display shifted to show a small blue-green world. Earth. Images flickered past. Humans fighting their own wars, building cities, destroying them, rebuilding bigger ones, failing, learning, trying again, never stopping. Look at their history, Nixus continued. In less than 3 centuries, they went from primitive combustion engines to rudimentary spaceflight. They've survived multiple near-extinction events of their own making. And most importantly, they think differently than any species we've encountered. Admiral Cathex's appendages brightened slightly. Different how? They embrace chaos. Where we see patterns, they see possibilities. Where we follow logic, they make intuitive leaps. Their fiction, their imagination, regularly predicts their future technological achievements. They dream something impossible, then find ways to make it real. The chamber fell silent again, but this time with contemplation rather than despair. Supreme Commander Vexthor stepped forward. And you believe these, humans, might see something in the collective that we've missed. I believe they must be given the chance. We've tried order. We've tried logic. We've tried every approach our species know. Perhaps it's time to try chaos. The decision wasn't unanimous, but it was close enough. Within hours, a diplomatic vessel was dispatched to Earth, carrying representatives from each council species. They would offer humanity a choice: remain safely isolated on their world, or join a desperate war against an enemy that had defeated civilizations thousands of years more advanced than their own. What the Council didn't know, couldn't know, was that humanity had been waiting for a moment like this throughout their entire history. Every story they'd told, every movie they'd made about alien contact had prepared them culturally for this moment. They'd been rehearsing it in their minds for generations. When the diplomatic vessel appeared over New York, hovering above the United Nations building with a display of lights that would have seemed like magic a century ago, humanity's response shocked the alien delegation. There was fear, yes. Confusion, certainly. But the overwhelming reaction was one the Council species had never predicted. Excitement. Within 48 hours, Earth's major nations had formed a unified response team. Within 72, they were reviewing all data on the Obsidian Collective. And within the first week, a young physicist from Nigeria was already proposing theories about the crystalline beings that none of the council species had considered. The last hope of the galaxy had been awakened, and they were already thinking of ways to do the impossible. As the diplomatic vessel departed Earth with a human delegation aboard, First Speaker Nixus observed their new allies through the ship's sensors. They were talking excitedly, asking questions, proposing ideas that ranged from brilliant to seemingly insane. But there was something else in their bearing, in their eyes, that she hadn't fully conveyed to the council. These humans didn't just think differently. They had something that centuries of advanced civilization had slowly stripped from the council species. They had fire in their souls. They didn't just want to survive. They wanted to thrive, to explore, to overcome. The galaxy was about to change. The only question was whether the council species were ready for the chaos humans would bring to their ordered universe. The human factor. Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the crystalline shard floating in the containment field, her reflection distorted across its obsidian surface. 3 months had passed since Earth joined the Galactic Council, and she still couldn't believe she was working in a laboratory that would have seemed impossible in her wildest dreams. Around her, aliens of various species worked at stations that manipulated energy and matter in ways human science was only beginning to understand. But something wasn't right with their approach. "You're all looking at it wrong," she muttered, earning a ripple of bioluminescent disapproval from her luminary colleague, senior researcher X Telephone. "We have analyzed the crystalline structure using quantum resonance imaging at the Planck scale," Ixtel pulsed. "We have mapped every atomic interaction. The data is conclusive. The crystal structure cannot be broken by any known weapon." Sarah ran her hands through her short black hair, a habit that constantly confused her alien colleagues. "That's exactly what I mean. You're all so focused on breaking it. What if we're asking the wrong question?" She walked to the holographic display, pulling up images of collective conversion in progress. The crystals didn't just destroy. They transformed, rebuilt, repurposed. Every world they touched became part of their expanding pattern. "Look at this like a disease," she said, thinking back to her grad school days, studying viral evolution. "The collective isn't just destroying. It's rewriting the basic structure of matter. It's like a virus hijacking the cell's machinery." Supreme Commander Vexthor, who had been observing the research team, clicked his mandibles skeptically. "We have considered biological analogies. The comparison is not valid. The collective operates on fundamental physical laws, not biological processes." Sarah smiled, a gesture that still made the Zixthi uncomfortable. "What if the difference isn't as big as we think? On Earth, we have something called a prion, a misfolded protein that can cause other proteins to misfold in the same way. It's not alive, but it replicates its pattern. What if the collective is doing something similar, but with space-time itself?" The laboratory fell silent. The idea was absurd, impossible by every standard of physics the council races knew. But they had learned that human impossible often meant something different. "Explain," Ixtel pulsed, their glow intensifying with interest. Sarah walked to another console, her fingers dancing across the alien interface she'd learned to use. "What if each crystal isn't just matter? What if it's a fold in space-time, propagating itself like a prion propagates its misfolded shape? Your weapons pass through them because they're not just here. They're partially in another dimension, like a piece of paper folded through a cube." The alien scientists exchanged looks of confusion and dawning interest. A Petrova researcher named Cax, their silicon-based form shifting with excitement, moved to another console. If this theory were correct, conventional weapons would be useless. The crystal structure would simply step aside. But Sarah continued, her eyes bright with the thrill of discovery. "If we could unfold space-time around them, force them to fully manifest in our dimension, they would be vulnerable," Vexthor finished, his mandibles clicking rapidly as he processed the implications. The next 12 hours were a blur of calculations and simulations. The human approach, looking at the problem sideways, drawing parallels from biology to physics, had opened new avenues of research. But it also revealed something that made the council species deeply uncomfortable. Humans didn't just think differently, they fundamentally questioned everything. When the first test of their prototype dimensional anchor created a small explosion and nearly breached containment, the council scientists wanted to step back, review, recalculate. Sarah and her human colleagues wanted to try again immediately, with modifications. "This is reckless," Ixhel pulsed with concern. "We need to understand exactly what went wrong." "We know what went wrong," Sarah countered, already adjusting calculations. "The spatial fold collapsed too quickly. We need to stabilize it first, then reverse it, like carefully unwrapping a present instead of tearing it open. And if we make a mistake," Sarah's expression grew serious, "then we learn from it and try again. That's what humans do. We fail forward." The phrase needed translation for some species, but its impact was universal. The council races had achieved their advanced state through careful, methodical progress. Humans embraced failure as a teacher. As the team prepared for another test, Admiral Kthex entered the laboratory, his appendages dim with exhaustion. "The collective has taken 3 more systems. Whatever you're working on, work faster." Sarah looked at the Admiral, then at her diverse team of alien colleagues. "We will. But we need to try something unconventional, something that might seem crazy." Kthex's appendages rippled. "How crazy?" "We need to capture a live piece of the collective, not just a shard, an active, converting piece, and we need to do it now." The silence that followed was deafening. What Sarah was suggesting was tantamount to suicide. But as the aliens looked at their human colleague, they saw something in her eyes that gave them pause. It wasn't recklessness or desperation. It was that uniquely human combination of fear, excitement, and determination. The humans called it hope. And somehow, against all logic, it was contagious. Breaking point. The mission to capture an active collective sample was supposed to be a precise surgical strike. Instead, the research vessel Helios hung dead in space, its hull covered in spreading black crystals, while inside, human and alien crew members fought a desperate battle for survival. Seal off sections 3 through 7. Commander James Rodriguez barked through the ship's comm system. "Petrova team, how's that containment field holding?" "Failing." Cax's silicon form vibrated with strain as they channeled power through their crystalline body structure. "The collective is adapting to our frequencies. Every adjustment we make, it counters within minutes." Through the reinforced viewport, Rodriguez watched as the crystalline growth consumed another section of the ship's hull. They had underestimated the collective's ability to adapt, to learn. Even this small sample was displaying intelligence far beyond what their data had suggested. Sarah Chen's voice crackled over the comm. "Commander, I need 10 minutes in the lab. The collective's adaptation pattern. I think I see something we missed." "We don't have 10 minutes," Kthex responded, his appendages flashing emergency patterns. "Hull integrity is failing. We need to abandon ship." "No." Sarah's voice was firm. "We're too close. This isn't just destroying us, it's learning from us. And that means we can learn from it." Rodriguez looked at Kthex, then at the spreading crystalline pattern. Years of military training told him to evacuate. But months of working with humans had taught Kthex something new. Sometimes the craziest plans were the only ones that worked. 5 minutes, Rodriguez decided. "Everyone else to emergency stations. Prepare for evacuation on my mark." In the laboratory, Sarah worked with desperate intensity. Around her, screens display the collective's adaptation patterns, how it responded to each countermeasure, how it learned, how it grew. But she wasn't looking at the obvious data. She was looking at something else. "It's like watching evolution in fast forward," she muttered. "Every time we attack it, it doesn't just defend. It becomes more complex, more ordered, more." Her eyes widened. Oh my God, we've been helping it. The ship shuddered as another section succumbed to crystallization. Sarah slammed her hand on the comm. Commander, I need you to shut down all power to the containment fields. All of it. Right now. That will release the sample. Kithex's horror was clear even through the translator. It will consume the entire ship. Trust me, Sarah pleaded. The collective, it feeds on order. Structure. Every time we try to contain it with our technology, we're giving it patterns to absorb and improve upon. We need to introduce chaos. Rodriguez's voice was tense. Explain. Fast. The collective builds perfect patterns, right? Each crystal identical, each structure flawless. But life, real life, isn't perfect. It's messy, chaotic. That's why Earth has millions of species and the collective just makes copies of itself. We need to stop fighting it with order and start fighting it with chaos. A moment of silence followed. Then Rodriguez's voice, calm despite everything. How do we do that? Shut down everything. All power, all systems. Let entropy take over. And then, she took a deep breath. Then we introduce the most chaotic thing we have, which is human DNA. My DNA, spliced with samples from every species on this ship. The most random, messy combination of life we can create. The silence that followed was broken by Cax's crystalline voice. That is impossible. The genetic structures are completely incompatible. It would create a mess. Sarah finished. Exactly what we need. Another shudder ran through the ship. They were out of time and options. Rodriguez made his decision. Everyone to the central lab. Now. Emergency power only. His voice hardened. And someone find me a way to splice DNA from 6 different species. What followed would later be described in council records as either the most brilliant or most reckless moment in galactic history. As the ship's systems went dark, as the crystal growth accelerated without orderly resistance, the combined medical knowledge of 6 species was turned to a task that should have been impossible. The resulting genetic soup was, as Cax had predicted, a mess. It violated every principle of biological science the council races held dear. But when they introduced it to the advancing crystal structure, something remarkable happened. The crystalline pattern stuttered. For the first time since the collective had appeared, its perfect pattern showed a flaw. Where the chaotic genetic material touched it, the crystals couldn't maintain their structure. They tried to adapt, to impose order, but there was no order to be found. Just chaos. Beautiful, living chaos. As the remaining crew huddled in the central lab, watching the battle between perfect order and absolute chaos play out on their screens, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. That's the thing about humans, she said to no one in particular. We're really good at making a mess of things. The collective sample was still spreading, still dangerous. But now they had something they didn't have before. They had a weakness to exploit. And humanity was very, very good at exploiting weaknesses. The counterstrike. The Galactic Council chamber had changed. Where once stood pristine holographic displays and orderly seating arrangements, now sprawled a chaotic array of human whiteboards, scratch papers, and hastily modified alien tech. At the center of this organized chaos stood Sarah Chen, addressing the most diverse military coalition in galactic history. The collective isn't just our enemy. It's the universe's immune system trying to impose perfect order, she explained, gesturing to a complex diagram. But we've learned something important. Like any immune system, it can be overwhelmed if we introduce enough chaos. Admiral Kithex's appendages flickered with cautious optimism. The test data from the Helios incident is promising, but scaling up a genetic attack to combat their entire force won't work, Sarah finished. At least not directly. But it gave us something better, a blueprint. Commander Rodriguez stepped forward, his uniform bearing new scars from the Helios encounter. We're not going to fight the collective with just one weapon. We're going to fight them with everything, all at once, in ways they can't predict. The next display showed a modified Council warship, but it wasn't just modified, it was transformed. Luminary energy matrices pulsed along its hull, while Petrova crystalline structures formed irregular patterns across its surface. HFY biological computers interfaced with human quantum processors in ways that should have been impossible. We call it the Chaos Engine, Rodriguez continued. Every system, every weapon, every defense is deliberately designed to be unpredictable. No two ships will be exactly alike. Even we won't know exactly how they'll perform until we use them. Supreme Commander Vex Thor clicked his mandibles in alarm. This violates every principle of military doctrine. Standardization ensures reliability, predictability. Exactly, Sarah interrupted. Predictability is what makes us vulnerable. The collective adapts to patterns, so we'll give them no patterns to adapt to. The chamber erupted in debate. The Council species had built their civilizations on order, on careful progress, on reliable systems. What humans were proposing wasn't just tactics, it was a fundamental shift in how they approached existence itself. Then a new voice cut through the chaos. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, Earth's leading expert in complex systems theory, stepped up to the central platform. Her quiet presence commanded attention in a way shouting never could. Look at Earth's ecosystems, she said, bringing up images of Earth's wild diversity. The most resilient systems aren't the most ordered. They're the most diverse. A monoculture can be wiped out by a single disease. But a diverse ecosystem, it adapts, it survives, it evolves. The images shifted to show the first successful test of their new approach. A small collective cluster, confronted with a prototype Chaos Engine ship, trying to adapt to its erratic energy patterns and failing. The crystals grew chaotically, imperfectly, vulnerably. We're not just building weapons, Yuki continued. We're building an ecosystem of chaos. Each ship, each weapon, each tactic adding to the complexity until the collective can't impose its order anymore. Admiral Cathex's appendages brightened with understanding. You're not trying to destroy them. We're trying to force them to evolve, Sarah finished, to adapt in ways they never have before, to either learn to coexist with chaos or fail, Rodriguez concluded. The production of the Chaos Engine fleet began immediately. Every shipyard in Council space worked at full capacity, but not on identical ships. Each vessel was a unique experiment in controlled chaos. Human engineers worked alongside alien specialists, deliberately breaking and rebuilding technologies in ways that should never have worked. The Luminary learned to modulate their energy patterns randomly. The Petrova discovered that imperfections in their crystalline structures could create unexpected advantages. The HFY biological computers began producing solutions that even they couldn't predict. And through it all, humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy became clear. The ability to embrace uncertainty, to find strength in variation, to see beauty in imperfection. As the fleet gathered for their first major offensive, Dr. Chen stood on the bridge of the flagship Prometheus, watching the assembled ships. Each one was different, each one a testament to what could happen when species stopped trying to impose their own version of order and instead embraced the creative potential of chaos. It's beautiful, Ixtel pulsed, their luminary form shifting through patterns that would have once been considered erratic, but now seemed natural. Not ordered, but alive, Sarah finished. Really, truly alive. The fleet's first target was a major collective conversion zone, a sector where their crystalline pattern had almost achieved perfection. As the ships moved into position, Commander Rodriguez gave an order that would have been impossible just months ago. All ships, initiate random pattern protocols. Let chaos reign. The battle that followed would rewrite not just military doctrine, but the very way the galaxy's species viewed existence itself. The age of perfect order was ending. And something new, something unpredictable, something wonderfully chaotic was about to begin. Evolution's children. The battle wasn't going as anyone had expected. And that was exactly the point. The Chaos Engine fleet's assault on the Collective's conversion zone had sparked something unprecedented. Where the crystalline structures usually grew in perfect, predictable patterns, now they spawned in fractals of increasing complexity. Order fought chaos, and in their struggle, something new emerged. From the Prometheus's bridge, Sarah Chen watched in fascination as the sensors revealed patterns never before seen in the Collective's behavior. "They're not just fighting us," she breathed. "They're changing." A massive view screen showed crystalline structures fracturing and reforming, not in their usual perfect symmetry, but in wild, organic shapes. Some sections pulsed with colors that shouldn't have been possible in their composition. Others seemed to be developing completely new structural properties. Multiple collective nodes are exhibiting variant behaviors, reported CACs, their silicon form resonating with excitement. Some are even fighting each other. Commander Rodriguez leaned forward in his chair. "They're evolving, just like we hoped." But into what? The answer came from an unexpected source. Deep within the Collective's conversion zone, a new signal emerged, not the usual crystalline propagation wave, but something more complex, more alive. "They're trying to communicate," Ixtel pulsed suddenly, their luminous form flickering with intensity. "But not in any language we know." Sarah's hands flew over her console. "It's not language, it's math. Pure mathematics. But," she paused, her eyes widening, "it's expressing uncertainty, probability, chaos theory." The message, when finally decoded, was both simple and profound. "We remember." Admiral Cathex's appendages rippled with confusion. "Remember what?" Before anyone could respond, the space around them began to shift. The Collective's crystals were reshaping themselves, but not into their usual geometric patterns. Instead, they formed massive, organic-looking structures that seemed hauntingly familiar. "They're showing us their past," Sarah whispered. "The Collective. They weren't always crystalline. They were organic once, eons ago. They chose to become perfect, unchanging. Because they were afraid," Yuki finished, her voice quiet with understanding. "Afraid of chaos, of change, of death. They turned themselves into living crystals to escape entropy itself." The revelation hit the assembled fleet like a physical force. The Collective wasn't an enemy. It was a species that had run so far from chaos that they'd forgotten what it meant to truly live. And humanity's gift of chaos hadn't just challenged them. It had awakened ancient memories of what they used to be. But the awakening came with a price. As more of the Collective began to remember, to change, to evolve, battles broke out between the various nodes. Some embraced the new chaos, developing ever more complex and beautiful forms. Others fought desperately to maintain their perfect crystalline nature. "We need to make a decision," Rodriguez said grimly. "Do we press the attack while they're divided? We could end this war right now." Sarah stood, her eyes fixed on the evolving patterns before them. "No, we do something harder. We offer them a choice." What followed was perhaps the most unique first contact scenario in galactic history. Using their mathematical language, the combined fleet transmitted a message to all Collective nodes, an invitation not to surrender, but to evolve. To remember what it meant to be truly alive, with all the uncertainty and change that entailed. The response split the Collective into three distinct groups. Some chose to remain crystalline, retreating to isolated regions of space, where they could maintain their perfect order. Others began a rapid evolution, their structures becoming increasingly organic, embracing chaos in ways that astonished even the humans. But the most interesting were those who found a balance, maintaining their crystalline nature while incorporating elements of chaos and change into their existence. 6 months later, the Galactic Council chamber hosted an unprecedented gathering. Representatives of every council species sat alongside three distinct forms of the former Collective: the classic crystalline, the new organic, and the hybrid forms. The agenda wasn't war or survival, but something far more challenging: how to build a galaxy where order and chaos could coexist. "It won't be easy," Sarah told the assembled representatives. We're not just talking about peace between species anymore. We're talking about peace between fundamentally different ways of existing. Perhaps that is exactly what we all needed to learn, responded a hybrid form representative, its partially crystalline structure shimmering with new, chaotic patterns. That existence itself is neither purely ordered nor purely chaotic, but a dance between the two. As the meeting continued, Admiral Kthex moved to stand beside Sarah. When we first discovered humans, he said, his appendages glowing softly, we thought you might save us with your weapons, your tactics, your technology. Instead, you saved us with something far more powerful. What's that? Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. Your ability to see beauty in imperfection, to embrace change, to understand that the most powerful force in the universe isn't order or chaos. It's the courage to let yourself evolve. Outside the council chamber, Earth's night sky now shone with new colors as crystalline structures merged with organic forms in an ever-evolving dance of order and chaos. Humanity had given the galaxy more than a military victory. They had given it a new way of seeing existence itself. The war was over. Evolution had begun.